mostly shaded lot and want to know about growing
This?
food.
Yeah, eat it.
Told her to plant the stuff that likes to grow in the shade.
How is it?
Oh, that's spicy right there. Those mustards are spicy.
Oh, but they're not.
Is it good?
Yeah, actually tastes like broccoli.
So this is my compost pile, and it's the compost area. It's kind of crazy. There's a lot going on over here, and I don't mind it looking crazy because it's serving a purpose and it's doing its thing. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing. We just embrace it for this big pile of trash that will turn into something good. Okay, so what can you compost? Well, let's talk about what composting is. Composting is what nature does. We're just doing it faster and in a pile. If you ever walk out into the woods, you'll notice that there are not just like giant piles of leaves. No, there's leaves, but underneath there's beautiful, rich black soil. And that's just from years and years of everything breaking down and the soil, they're waiting. Soil being built from breaking down what is in nature. So we'll talk about this really quick so that my dogs can, I'll show you what my dogs do. This is not required for composting. This all is. So pretty much what I do in the house is I collect, babe, no. What I do is I collect everything that I'm working in the house. I keep a bucket around. Sometimes it gets shoved into something else. No. And as I'm cleaning, I put it all in a bucket. Once a day this thing gets filled. If I'm having a lot of people over, if I'm cooking a lot, or if I'm really doing some major cleaning, I might use a big bucket or I might use something like this. So you can compost anything or try to compost anything. If you can't compost it, you'll find it later. It'll be pieces of tape. If it's been in the compost pile, this is pieces of tape. This is a wrapper of some sort. Somehow a wrapper in a box got left in there. This is like, I'm not sure what that is. So I keep something around to collect it, the stuff that isn't good. But things that can be composted, so eggshells can be composted, kale. I don't know why, I got a respirator the other day and it came with like 2 packets of information. Just put it on and breathe. But that can be composted. Boxes, if a box is very shiny, like Crest toothpaste boxes, they don't break down very well. Kerrygold butter boxes do not break down very well, sadly. But like boxes that don't have a ton of color or aren't shiny, those can go in there. The inside of a newspaper and newspapers once you've read them. Paper plates can totally be composted. Coffee filters, but I'm cheap. I just use a half a paper towel. That can go in there. Old food, potato peels, and this was all from this morning. I cooked a bunch of sweet potatoes today. Yeah, so that all can go in, and my dogs come along and eat. They check it, I don't care. You know, they're tough. Cardboard boxes, papers, goat papers from dead goats or goats we sold to people to eat. Those all go in. So everything goes in, and then the next thing you can do, well, this is all the stuff that blew away in the wind, and we will talk about covering it. This all I picked up out there. That all got in there. And then one of the main things you're going to talk about people composting is browns and greens. So if you hear them say like you need a balance of browns and greens, the reason you need the balance is because if you had only browns in there, nothing would happen. And if you had only greens in there, it might get super, super hot, which is fine, but you kind of want to balance. This is pretty much just what I collected in 5 minutes this morning in the garden. That's a bunch of old weeds. That can all go in. And
Can I answer your question though?
yes.
We have a compost bin, but the thing is, if you're pulling weeds and we throw them in there, will they give you new seeds?
Yeah. So if she asked if will the weed seeds germinate? So if you put weed seeds in a compost pile, will they germinate? And the answer is if you have a cool composting system, or if you don't get it super hot, they absolutely will germinate. I had this last year. I can't remember what weed it was. So I had 2 things germinating in all of my compost: Everglades tomatoes and this one weed. I can't remember what it was, but I'm like, how did that get here? Yes. So you have to get it hot enough, and that's one of the things with having your balance. One of the things you want to have is a compost thermometer. This is, I think, like a 20-inch model. You can buy them on Amazon. It's Rio Temp Compost. It's made for compost. And the cool thing is it tells you on here if it's steady, active, or hot. I pulled this out of a pot in there this morning because it was in storage in there. You don't want to turn this on accident. And it was at like 42 degrees. So in a pot in there, the soil temperature was 42. Just now when I pulled it out of here, I should have looked before I did it. It was over 100. This pile has not been turned in at least a week or two, and then I added some stuff on top.
How often should you turn it?
Okay, the more you turn it, the faster your compost will make. The bigger your pile is, the faster your compost will make. So if you have a small pile, this is where a lot of people are frustrated. They have that little turner, or they have a very small pile because they don't want something offensive looking. And there is a way to have it where it's not offensive looking, like just 3 pallets in a square. My mom built something about 4 foot wide one year. She built 2 of them side by side. She took a piece of black shade cloth and stapled it to the whole back of it, and then the front of it, she put it on a pole. She rolled it and stapled it to a pole. So when it was time to turn her compost pile, she'd pick the pole up and roll it to the back and have this beautiful compost pile that's covered but not covered. And then she would turn it and then pull it back down. Things don't fly like that, and your critters don't really get into it. She would not tolerate this. Like, this is way too messy. And it's too messy for most people, understandably. So pretty much, one thing I don't worry about is the amount of dirt I'm putting in here, because it's all going to go back into the property. I'm not losing it. It's not going anywhere. So the bigger it is, the faster it'll go, and the more you turn it. So like if you turned it every 2 weeks, that would be great. And if you have it small enough, that's what I was going to show y'all, with a pitchfork, you can turn it this I turn with and I'm going to show y'all in a little bit how I turn it with the tractor. But you could easily turn it with a pitchfork if it's small enough. So one thing we do have to remember, and especially if you're adding inputs from a pasture, or from anything where you have animals, coastal hay, a lot of coastal has been sprayed with a herbicide called Graze on Next, and it has a persistent herbicide in it. Persistent means it stays in it. So whenever it gets sprayed onto the hay, it now gets ingested by the goat, and then that poop still has it in it. And whenever you put it on your compost still has it in it. And then whenever you put it on your garden, it will kill broadleaf stuff. It's really, really harmful to tomatoes and peppers and green beans. If you do want to use coastal, you have to find who is baling it and ask them. So there's this method of gardening now, or it's probably been around forever, called agroforestry. That's what Eli and Ian do at their homes. Ian doesn't do it. Eli does it. Ian just enjoys it. He just has to look at it. But there's something called chop and drop. So like you grow stuff just for its biomass. So that in the garden, we can go back in there in a little bit and look at it. But there's a plant called Mexican sunflower. Like it's amazing. Like it just grows like crazy. You pull leaves off and add it to your compost. So I didn't even think about that. You can grow your own stuff. Something Mexican sunflower.
We have some.
You do? You can add the leaves to it. It gets a pretty big leaf. And I had been collecting the leaves for the goats this year because I found out it's good goat forage. So the goats would see me come in the pasture, and I would say, "Hey girls, come here," and I'd rip down a bunch of leaves, and you go over there and they eat it. And so that's why I was growing it, but it's really good for that. So yes, you can add anything to it. Is there anything you shouldn't add to a compost? Don't add diesel fuel. Such wisdom from Eli. So what composting is it's microbes breaking down stuff, and they do it by the heat helps and moisture helps, and they have to have something to eat. But they eat it. They eat the plant matter, and then they poop out what they're pooping out. Something else comes along and eats, and it poops it out, and all of that stuff breaks everything down to where you only have the base things left. You don't have like a structure of a plant. You have nutrients.
So should you water your compost, or does it get enough moisture?
If it's super dry, you can. when I add the stuff out of the stalls, I really should go ahead and give it some water, but I don't.
Okay.
No, it works if you don't. You can do a lot of things wrong and still have compost.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
You really can. The main thing is the amount of it. If you are truly trying to do compost in this, it is going to take, I don't know how long. It'd take a long time. This is a year old. This is 6 months old. I do them in 6-month rotations. After 6 months, one is full like this, and one is ready. So this is one that's mostly ready to go. And what I would do is I would take this out. Honestly, not sure what that was, that it didn't break up very good. I'm gonna take that, and we're just gonna throw that over there. But this is what it looks like. I mean, this is what's amazing. It's trash, y'all. It's soil. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, it just, that's amazing.
It's the best kind of recycling you can do.
It's the best kind of recycling. Like, this is the best because it never left the property. If it came here, like when you go to the grocery store, you just ask for paper bags. I love to do this. I ask for paper bags, and then if I'm cleaning up my office, if I'm in my office and I'm doing paperwork, I have a bag there, and everything that is paper, Caleb's mail, I love it. I tell the boys, take your mail or I'm composting it. I compost all kinds of stuff. Now, shiny stuff, those stupid Uline magazines that they send you if you ever order one thing, you get that giant magazine again forever. Those have to go in the burn pile. But all that stuff, you put it in here. Every now and then, you'll find the little clear window, like the mailing address window. Who cares? Just throw it away, put it in your pocket. But the tape on Amazon boxes is recyclable. I do put some coastal in there, but it's not enough to worry about. Whenever we butcher chickens, we take a bale of hay and we set it underneath where we're our killing station, and that collects all the blood, and then that whole bale of hay gets thrown in the compost.
So you can actually put like guts or whatever you need to in there?
Look at all the feathers.
Okay.
We butchered chickens in December, I think. All the feathers go in here, all the guts go in there.
We have 75 in my pile right now.
You do?
Yeah, they're raccoons, so yeah, they're composting.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was very good. But it'll feed the garden.
It does, it feeds the garden. Now I will say this, if you compost something large, it does not break down fast. Chicken feathers, birds, different stuff, I would be very careful about doing anything very large.
Okay.
So what happens when you do something large like that? You create an imbalance. You get more bacteria than the other stuff, or you get an anaerobic environment. So that's something we didn't talk about, air. They do need air, and that's one of the reasons you would turn your compost pile, is because they need air. Well, if you don't ever turn it and you do have a bunch of yucky stuff in there and it gets like compacted. Okay, how do you use this? So once it gets to this point, what do you even do with it? So I would turn this again, pick out the things that didn't go. Like if you put feed bags in there, a lot of feed bags, if it's paper on both sides, you'll find the string later. So you could pick everything out. But if you wanted to do it and use it in a nice flower bed where you didn't have like any chance of having anything weird, you could get a piece of like hardware cloth. I would do like 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch or even 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch hardware cloth, and make a little square of it and put it over a wheelbarrow and take scoop by scoop and put it over there, shake it, and you get this beautiful rich black material that's left over. And use it. If you're not worried about like the little pieces like hay and stuff still being in it, then I would just take it and put it straight like this on a garden. So once a year at least, put 1 inch of it over all of your beds. If you didn't get it hot enough, you'll know when Everglade tomatoes sprout. Germination temperatures. This is really interesting. The Johnny seed catalog is really cool for vegetables. It actually has a chart in there that it tells you the favorite germination temperature of all the vegetables. But even weeds should have that, shouldn't they? I mean, I've never looked for it. I just wait on them to pop up. But you can even look and see, or maybe look up what's the temperature that things have to be for a certain time to be killed. So, I mean, if your compost pile gets to like 140, I would think you're definitely killing some stuff. Now it's at 90 degrees. Anything from 80 to 100 is steady. from 100 to 130 is active, and 130 plus is hot. Now, if you get too hot, you'll kill good things. You don't want to get hotter. I think it's like 160 is where it's detrimental to a pile.
What happens at 160?
You're going to kill good bugs, good things. You're going to kill good bacteria. So one of the reasons we're doing this is to grow things here, grow microbial things that will eventually get put into the garden and then help create nutrients in the garden. So in the garden, we're not feeding our plants, you're feeding the soil. And that's what we're doing by adding compost to it, is we're feeding the soil, and then the soil adds, it's a nice home for all these bugs. And I say bugs, you know, like bacteria and protozoa and microarthropods and all these things. I don't even know what they are. I couldn't, if you showed me a lineup, I couldn't tell you what was what. But it's all these microscopic things that make it all work and make beautiful soil. Like if you do it right, if we do this and we put it in the soil and then we treat it good over there, we don't put chemicals on it, we don't let it dry out, we don't let it totally bake in the sun, then you create this great environment for all these things to grow, and then they feed your plants and you don't have to use chemicals. You asked me earlier, like, do we have pest problems? Well, there's some pests that are annoying, but they're more annoying than detrimental. Like they're not just gonna wipe something out. And a lot of that has to do with creating a good environment to where the plant can be strong and healthy and you don't have to worry about it. And that all comes from creating good soil. Whenever you get to where there's not much stuff breaking down, it's gonna quit producing so much heat. So maybe that would be a good indicator. I don't know, but that's left. Pockets. Look. That's cool. Yeah. Every time we compost jeans, look, that's the zipper. The 20X Wrangler jean button. And I don't know where the other as I was doing that, I could smell like a musty kind of like, reminds me of like musty soil, but almost like barn trash. And a compost pile that's really doing what it's supposed to be doing shouldn't smell. Black soldier fly bin, that's a whole nother thing, because once it gets in balance, it's breaking down fast enough. And then the second thing is I uncovered a whole bunch of carpenter ants. I don't worry about bugs in mine. Bugs are good, they're breaking things down. I mean, it would be annoying if there was ants all the time in it, or if you had to mess with it with your hands, which we shouldn't. That's when we're picking that up, we gotta wash our hands, because you know there's bacteria. And then as far as I said earlier about putting dead animals in there, you only want to put stuff like that in there if you have a hot enough pile. If you put it in a cool pile, you are breeding pathogens, like really bad crap. So you want to make sure if you are putting sketchy stuff in there, things that they are normally on like the don't do list, that you have a hot pile, and that you're monitoring your temperature to make sure that it's getting hot enough to kill all the pathogens. So one of the biggest things about, and we talked about it sort of, is about keeping the trash out of the landfills. But one of the biggest things is about the carbon. So you hear about like the carbon in the air, carbon in the atmosphere, and it's not good to have it out there. So whenever we burn our trash, we literally are putting carbon into the atmosphere. Whenever you compost trash, you're leaving the carbon in the soil, and then when you put it on your garden, there's jobs it does. And it literally has so many jobs in the soil, and it's really, really beneficial. So the more amount of carbon that we can put in the soil in compost, the better it is for the environment, the better it is for your garden, as far as like holding nutrients, holding moisture, and building structure and all these other things. But that's what we were just talking about, is why else do it? And it's for the carbon, to keep the carbon in the soil and not in the air. Okay.
Oh my god! Oh my god, look at this! What do you have? Is it cute? Aww.
Oh yeah. Sure, you can show them or raise babies out of them or just milk them. And then the boys, I'm not sure yet. They'll be less. You want to get one, Eli?